All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be really diving into this awesome conversation between Joe Rogan and Josh Waitzkin.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
Waitzkin, a lot of people probably recognize him as, that chess prodigy, right? The one, the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer is based on.
Exactly. Yeah, he was incredible.
But his story, it goes in some really wild directions. He becomes this world-class martial artist, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and then now he's super into ocean foiling.
It's crazy how he just keeps evolving. It's inspiring, really.
So you sent over these excerpts from the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, right? The one where Rogan interviews Josh.
Yeah, that's right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to try to break down, his core philosophies on like learning, competition, adaptation, and like how he sees, this crazy world that's changing so fast, especially with all this AI stuff.
Yeah, the AI stuff is a whole other layer to this conversation. It gets really interesting.
Yeah, totally.
So, Waitzkin's whole journey, it's remarkable.
Yeah.
What I think is so cool about it is he has this like insatiable curiosity. It pushes him to be the best in these fields that seem so different from each other. Like, how do you go from chess to jiu-jitsu to foiling? It's incredible.
Right. I mean, I know you sent this to me because you're interested in like how to, gain knowledge really fast.
For sure.
And like, how is it that someone can become an expert in like all these totally different things?
Right, right. How do you master multiple domains? It's a question we all grapple with, I think.
And Waiskin's life, it's like a masterclass in that, It's all about this idea of transition, right?
Yeah.
Not just like moving between these physical these physical disciplines, but also like, how do you deal with all the curveballs that life throws at you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How do you adapt and keep growing?
So the conversation that we're looking at here, they spend like a decent amount of time talking about jujitsu, which, is obviously like a huge part of Waiskin's, his whole journey.
Yeah, for sure.
He talks about, starting out training with John Machado.
Oh, wow. John Machado. That's old school.
Yeah. And he talks about, all his cross-training experiences and then, obviously his really close relationship with Marcelo Garcia, who's like
A legend.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the best to ever do it, right?
Totally.
So, okay, let's break down, Marcelo's approach for a second.
Okay.
Because it really hit Waitzkin how, Marcelo, he wasn't all about, holding these static positions.
Right.
He was more about like always moving, always transitioning, like flowing.
Like a constant state of flux, right?
Yeah. So, what was it about, Marcelo's philosophy that was so interesting?
So the thing is, Marcelo, he didn't just focus on, like holding a certain guard or like getting a dominant position and just staying there.
Yeah.
He was all about mastering the flow between positions, like the transitions.
Yeah.
The scrambles, the constant adjustment.
The in between. Huh.
Exactly, the in between. And Waitzkin talks about this time he saw Marcelo compete. I think it was in Abu Dhabi back in 2003. Marcelo was a brown belt then.
Oh, wow.
And he wasn't like a big name yet.
Right.
But he just dominated. He blew through his division with this crazy fluid style.
Like nobody knew what to do with him.
Right,
Oh.
exactly. And he finished some really tough, really well-known guys really quickly.
So like how can we apply this idea of, mastering the transitions to like everyday life? Like what's an example of that?
Think about learning a language.
Okay.
A lot of people, they focus on, like memorizing vocabulary lists.
Right.
Or, grammar rules.
Yeah.
It's like those static positions,
Okay, yeah. I get it.
But the real fluency comes from like how you move between those things, Like how do you form sentences?
Yeah.
How do you understand the nuances in a conversation?
Right.
How do you adapt to different speaking styles? So Marcelo's whole focus on the in-between.
Yeah.
It could help you think about language learning in a different way.
Right.
Like instead of just those isolated building blocks,
Right.
it's about practicing real-world communication.
Yeah.
That dynamic back and forth.
Yeah. I like that. That's a really good analogy.
Thanks.
And Waitzkin actually he makes a similar comparison to striking too.
Oh, really?
He talks about how important footwork and angles are.
Yeah.
And he mentions Vasily Lomachenko, the boxer,
Oh, yeah, Lomachenko. Amazing.
known for like his crazy movement.
Incredible footwork.
And apparently, Lomachenko's dad, he had him study Ukrainian dance for like 2 years when he was a kid.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I mean, like, what do you think is the bigger takeaway from that? Like what's the connection between these different disciplines?
Well,
Yeah.
it's like it shows that there are these fundamental principles
Mm.
that you can find in these seemingly unrelated things.
Yeah.
Like Lomachenko's footwork, it comes from dance.
Yeah.
But it gives him this crazy ability to be in the perfect spot
Yeah.
to attack, but also to defend.
To like control the space. Right?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's very similar to what Marcelo was doing with the transitions in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Keeping his opponents off balance, creating openings.
Right.
So it's really about understanding movement,
Mhm.
how you occupy space. It's crucial in so many things, even if it looks totally different from the outside.
So then the conversation takes this interesting turn where they start talking about vulnerability
Okay.
and what Waitzkin calls dogma in learning.
Oh, okay.
They bring up like guard players in MMA.
Okay.
Like Paul Craig.
Oh, yeah, Paul Craig.
Who are like super dangerous off their back,
Yeah.
right? And how some fighters might, underestimate that position.
Yeah, because it seems vulnerable, but it's not.
Right, exactly. So what's the point here about, our own potential blind spots?
It shows how we can get stuck in certain ways of thinking.
Yeah.
In martial arts, just like in any field,
Yeah.
you can have these established beliefs,
Yeah.
these dogmas, right?
Right.
That might actually hold you back.
Yeah.
Like they talk about the early days of jiu-jitsu
Mm-hmm.
and how people were really resistant to leg locks.
Right.
Like a lot of practitioners, they just thought like leg locks weren't real jiu-jitsu.
Okay, yeah.
Or they didn't think they were effective.
Right.
But as the sport evolved,
Yeah.
leg locks became like super important.
Yeah. Huge.
Huge. And now like you can't be competitive if you don't know leg locks.
And Waitzkin, he's got this like, kind of firsthand experience with this, right?
Yeah, didn't he hurt his knee?
Yeah, he mentions getting a knee injury pretty early on from a heel hook, because he hadn't really trained them properly himself.
Right.
So, I mean, like, what's the lesson there? Like, how does that relate to this idea of, dogma and blind spots?
I think what it shows is that you got to embrace everything.
Okay.
Like all the parts of a discipline, even the stuff that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah.
Waitzkin, he got hurt.
Right.
Because he wasn't paying attention to this whole aspect of the art.
Right.
So it's like, if you avoid the things that make you vulnerable,
Yeah.
or the things that you're not good at,
Yeah.
you're going to limit your own growth.
Right.
You're not going to reach your full potential.
Okay, so this kind of leads into this other really important point that Waitzkin makes, which is the importance of setbacks, right?
Yeah.
And he actually says, getting your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Like he's not afraid to say it,
He's very direct.
And he talks about how losing his first national chess championship
Oh, wow.
was actually like this huge moment for him.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like a turning point in his development.
Okay.
So I mean, what's so interesting about how he sees, failure?
Well, he kind of flips the script on it.
Okay.
He says that trying to avoid challenges,
Right.
and like trying to keep a perfect record,
Mm.
it can actually hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. It's through the losses.
Yeah.
Through those moments where you get beat,
Mhm.
that you're really forced to like look at yourself.
Right.
Figure out your weaknesses,
Right.
change your strategy,
Yeah.
and then you come back stronger.
Yeah.
So it's really about deep learning,
Okay.
It's not just about like surface level success.
Right. It's about engaging with the hard stuff.
Exactly. It's about embracing those challenges, those setbacks, and using them to fuel your growth.
And he talks about how, being this top-rated kid in chess
Mm-hmm.
meant that like everybody was gunning for him. you know?
Yeah, he was the target.
Yeah, he was the target.
Everyone wanted to take him down.
And that his weaknesses, they were always going to get exposed.
Yeah.
And he says this amazing line. He's like, it became outside of my conceptual scheme not to take on the weakness.
Wow. That's powerful. Right. I mean, like, what do you make of that?
It's like he's saying
Yeah.
that he had to confront his weaknesses head on.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't avoid them. So he just leaned into it.
Yeah.
He made facing his weaknesses part of his process.
And I mean, this idea, right, of like really identifying your shortcomings and like attacking them, right?
Yeah.
It's such a good strategy
Absolutely.
for learning anything,
Yeah, it's about constant self-assessment,
Yeah. Right.
and improvement. It's how you achieve mastery.
So like even thinking about like, work, right? Like
Yeah.
you've got this new project
Yeah.
and there are these parts of it that you're just like dreading.
Right, the stuff you want to avoid.
Yeah.
We all have that.
But Waitzkin would say, like, you got to go right at that stuff.
You got to tackle it head on
Learn from your screw ups.
because that's where the real growth is.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So the conversation also like touches on this more personal stuff too.
Oh yeah.
Like he talks about the impact of fame,
Okay.
from the movie Searching for Bobby Fischer.
Right. Right.
And how it actually like, led to this existential crisis for him.
I can imagine. That's a lot to deal with at a young age.
So like what do you think, what's the takeaway from that part of his story?
Well, I think it shows that success, especially early success,
Yeah.
it can be really tough to handle.
Yeah.
It can make you question everything.
Right.
Like, what's it all for?
Right.
What's the meaning of all this?
Yeah.
And I think for Waitzkin, this period of self-reflection, it was really important.
Yeah.
It shaped how he approached learning later on,
Right.
and how he was able to move into these new things.
Yeah.
Like he came out of it with a much deeper understanding of himself.
Right, like his own values, his own motivations.
Exactly.
So then he talks about this idea of like shifting from, what he calls pre-conscious learning to post-conscious learning.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm not familiar with that. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So what he means is, the pre-conscious stage, that's like that initial love you have for something.
Okay.
Right? It's like pure enjoyment, intuition.
Okay.
Like think about, when you first get into a certain type of music.
Okay.
You love listening to it.
Right.
But you don't necessarily understand like, the theory behind it.
Yeah, you're not analyzing it.
Yeah.
You're just feeling it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, the post-conscious stage, that's when you start to like really understand the principles.
The structure. You go beyond just instinct.
You develop a deeper understanding.
Yeah, it's more deliberate.
Okay.
More nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how this often involves, like dealing with the absurdity of focusing on any one thing so much.
Right, because when you really zoom in on something, you start to see the strangeness of it.
Right.
Like, why are we even doing this?
Right. And then trying to find like, connections and meaning
Right.
like beyond that.
Right, to see the bigger picture.
Yeah, so with the music example, post-conscious learning,
Right.
that could be like, you start studying music theory.
Okay.
You start understanding different genres, their history.
Yeah, you put it all in context.
And you can actually analyze the music. You
Yeah.
can appreciate it on this much deeper level.
So it's like you're going from just enjoying it
Yeah.
to understanding how it works.
Right.
And why it works.
Yeah.
That's cool. They also talk about, like why kids often seem to learn faster than adults.
Right.
And Waitzkin, he brings up this idea of unlearning.
Unlearning.
So what do you think he means by that?
Well, as adults, we've got all this baggage, right?
Yeah.
We have like all these preconceived ideas and ego,
Yeah.
and fears of failure.
Right.
And kids, they don't have that stuff.
Right.
So they can just like dive into something
Yeah.
without all that holding them back.
And they're not afraid to like, look stupid. right?
Exactly. They're not self-conscious.
They're just like having fun.
Yeah, it's pure exploration for them.
Right. So like if you're if you're trying to learn like a new physical skill,
Hmm.
a kid will just like jump in and try it.
Yeah, they don't care if they look clumsy.
Right.
They're just trying to figure it out.
But an adult might be like way more hesitant.
Right. They're thinking about how they look. They're
Yeah.
worried about making mistakes.
And then, the conversation, it kind of takes this big turn,
Okay.
and they get into AI, right? Artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
And Waitzkin, he's like pretty convinced that AI is going to be like better than humans at pretty much everything.
Wow.
And he makes this really interesting analogy. He compares, you know, chess ratings
Okay.
to illustrate this point.
Okay, I'm curious to hear this.
So he talks about the difference in rating
Mm-hmm.
between like a really good child chess player
Okay.
and a world champion.
Yeah.
And then he compares that to the difference in rating between a world champion and like the top AI chess engines,
Oh, wow.
which are like way higher, right?
Right. So he's saying that the gap between humans and AI is even bigger than the gap between different levels of human skill.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of like puts it in perspective, right? Like the potential scale of what AI can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you think like maybe we need to be a little more, a little more humble.
Yeah, less arrogant about our own intelligence.
Yeah.
Because in a lot of areas, AI is already like way ahead of us,
Yeah.
and it's only going to get more advanced.
And they talk about, like the potential risks of AI too,
Oh,
right?
That's important to consider.
Like manipulation,
Mm.
through like controlling information.
Right, like curated search results
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. But also, the potential for AI to do like really amazing things.
Right, in science, in medicine.
Yeah. So it's this double-edged sword, right?
Exactly. A lot of potential for both good and bad.
Right. And Waitzkin, he talks about how important it is to like develop safeguards,
Yeah, like ethical guidelines.
alongside the development of AI itself.
Right, because if we don't, we could end up in a really dangerous situation.
Right.
Where,
You're right.
where AI is used for harmful purposes.
So then they bring up, this thing about jobs
Okay.
and how AI might replace a lot of jobs.
Right, that's a big concern.
And they talk about, universal basic income
Mm.
and like, what that would do to us like psychologically.
Right, like how would we find meaning and purpose?
Yeah. So what do you think? Like what are your thoughts on that?
It's a really big question.
Yeah.
You know, if work as we know it disappears,
Mm-hmm.
how do we find our place?
Yeah.
How do we contribute?
Right.
And Waitzkin, he talks about this art of rediscovery.
Right.
Like the ability to learn new things, to adapt,
Mhm.
to reinvent yourself.
Right.
And I think, in this world that's changing so fast,
Yeah.
that's going to be more important than ever.
Right. Like that dynamic quality that he keeps talking about.
Exactly. It's not just for athletes.
Right.
It's for everyone.
Yeah.
Like think about your own field.
Mm.
It's always evolving. There are always new things to learn.
Right.
New technologies, new approaches.
Yeah.
And if you want to stay ahead, you got to be adaptable.
Right. You got to be willing to learn and grow.
Absolutely.
So Waitzkin, he talks a lot about, engaging in these activities that have like really clear feedback mechanisms.
Mhm.
He calls them truth-telling arenas.
Oh, that's a great term. I like that.
Right. Like
Yeah.
so what does that mean to you? Like what are some examples of truth-telling arenas?
Well, I think it's anything where you get direct feedback.
Yeah.
Unbiased feedback.
Yeah.
Like a chess rating.
Okay.
It tells you exactly how good you are.
Right.
Or sparring,
Yeah.
on the mat.
Right.
You know right away if your techniques are working.
Yeah.
Or any skill,
Mm.
really, where there are clear metrics.
Right, where you can track your progress.
Yeah, and Waitzkin, he believes that this is crucial
Okay.
for self-awareness.
Mhm.
It forces you to look at your weaknesses,
Yeah.
to be accountable for your performance.
Right.
And I think in this world where it's so easy to to get lost in your own head,
Yeah.
to believe your own hype,
Right.
to be surrounded by yes men.
Right.
It's more important than ever to have these anchors to reality.
Yeah, these ways of like checking yourself.
Exactly.
So then he talks about his philosophy on coaching.
Yeah.
And he's really big on this idea of like, unleashing potential instead of trying to like impose a certain style or approach.
I see. So it's more about helping someone discover their own unique strengths.
Yeah, exactly. And he uses these really cool terms. He talks about understanding an individual's brilliance and dysfunction.
Brilliance and dysfunction.
Yeah, and he talks about this cave process.
This process.
Where you try to understand a person's like, purest form of self-expression,
Yeah.
like free from all their past stuff, you know.
For like their baggage, their inhibitions.
Yeah. And he talks about this bad experience he had with this chess coach who tried to make him like play more positionally.
Oh, wow.
When he was like naturally an attacking player.
Right. So the coach was trying to sit him into a mold that didn't really suit him.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, when you try to force someone to be something they're not,
Yeah.
it doesn't work.
It backfires.
It backfires, right? And Waitzkin, he actually tells this really powerful story about Marcelo Garcia. And it kind of reveals this really interesting connection between like Marcelo's genius and his awareness of pain, like past pain.
Okay, that's intriguing.
So what Waitzkin says is that